I was editing. It's really hard in like architectural photography because I've like just gotten around to like starting to edit the photos I did in Portugal.
Scott sent you any photos of the corners of the buildings?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. That is hard to do, to get those lines straight. So it's like, because you'll have like the center line is straight, but then the other two will be all fucked up, and
especially with the distance, like vertically as well. Like,
yeah, I can show you some examples later. It's tough to kind of get those lines.
so if you wanted to like say shoot a skyscraper from the bottom, you know how it curves in. Is there a way to counteract that within the camera, or is that all like edited? Or would you need some like super specific lens?
In the camera, it depends on what lens you use. Like, so here's the thing: the wider you go in terms of focal length, and focal length is just like basically like how wide is your shot. Like if it's a high number, then it's like really zoomed in. If it's like, so on this camera at the moment, on this lens, it's like 35. And it's measured in millimeters. What it means is whatever.
35 is like a pretty standard length. Well, for what we do anyway, like.
Yeah, I mean, for the space we're in, it's wide for what it is.
It's usually like 35 to 50.
It's 28 to 70 is like a pretty standard range.
Okay.
Most kit lenses will, like mine's 28 to 70. Canon side, it might be, you get like 18 to 55. So it's like 18 is like really wide.
Yeah.
55 is like, so 50 is about like what we see with our eye.
Okay.
So like the other lens that I have is a 50. And it's called like a nifty 50 lens, which basically is like, it's usually the cheapest lens that you can buy. They're really cheap. They're really simple to make. But like, so there's two types of lenses. You have fixed focal lengths and you have zoom lenses. Basically that means like, so with a fixed focal length, you can't zoom. But what that means is you have to, if you want to zoom or you want to like get closer to something, you have to move. Like you zoom with your feet, basically. So with that kind of focal length, with a 50, it's roughly like what you see with your eye.
You can like probably eyeball most shots. Yeah.
So that's where it's like really handy.
I never knew that. That's really
because like
clever.
Then if you're trying to get a shot, essentially like what you see, it's like, oh, okay, I want to, you know, if I see this and it's far away, then I should probably get closer. Or if I see something and it's really close to me, then I have to back up.
It is that makes a lot, like for amateur photographers, that's just a great way to get used to scaling yourself.
It's on a lot of film cameras as well. Like you'll either have like a 35mm or a 50 as like what comes with your camera, or like it like when my dad gave me his film camera, it had a 50 on it. Like that's it.
What's considered a macro lens? Is that 18 to 35?
So macros can be any focal length.
Right.
The difference with a macro lens is that it's how close you can focus on something.
Right, because it's good. I know it's good for close-up photography of like people.
That's the purpose of macro lenses. Yeah. So a macro lens, say on this lens, like I could maybe get, I don't know, like 30 centimeters away from something.
Yeah.
And it will still focus on it. Whereas with a macro, I can have a lens and I can get like this close to whatever it is and it will still focus.
Okay, yeah.
It's just because it's how like the lens, the lens elements are in the lens
when
and how
I
they're
first found
arranged and
out
stuff.
how cameras work, it blew my fucking mind. Especially like digital cameras and stuff, because you wouldn't expect it to be physical. But like then you had this diagram of these bouncing mirrors, and it's insane. You'd think it would just be like a straight thing, right?
And my camera doesn't have a mirror because it's mirrorless. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
These are newer ones.
And it like, is that a more modern thing now? Just mirrorless cameras?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, phones are mirrorless.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, before the way it works is like there's a mirror, and if it's digital, it's a mirror. And the way that the lenses work is they kind of like go like this with the light that comes into the lens, and then with that it kind of like crosses over, so the image is flipped. Right. And then that's where the cameras have a processor in it, just a computer,
and it, like,
that will
captures all
flip
the
it
light.
And kind of take all that data and actually like interpret it as a photo.
Yeah. It like digitally paints on a minuscule level the light that it sees.
Basically, it's like individual pixels, and then that's where you get like raw JPEG and like these kind of things. But this is where like photography really, or just like imagery in general gets really complicated.
It sounds right. It feels like we're recording. Are we actually recording?
Yeah, we are recording.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just gonna do the intro now then while we're talking.
Yeah. Go for
Welcome to the Munchie Media Podcast. I'm Mason.
I'm Nick with no K.
Love it. Sorry, that felt good. I like that. Carry
just
on.
went straight into it.
I was just like, I enjoyed that. Like,
yeah. So
I was just gonna be really upset if we weren't recording because I was like, this is a podcast.
Yeah. A couple years ago, my dad was working at Nokia, and
really,
yeah. So basically, he worked for a different company, and then Nokia bought the department or bought the company that he worked for, and it just became a department in Nokia. And this happened like twice. It was like the most convoluted thing ever. It's like they bought the company, then sold it to a different company, and then like a year later they bought it again.
Were they just seen as like workforce essentially, where like a company could just say, right, you work for us now? It's obviously they're contracted to their company, but like maybe the building or the department.
Not really. It was like, so the company that my dad worked for, they worked on something called oh fuck, I don't even remember. It's like CDNs or something. 3210. Yeah, it wasn't like the phones division. It was basically on like networking tools. At the time, they were working on 5G before like 5G was released.
How recently was this?
Like 5 years ago.
Okay, so we're talking about like modern Nokia phones. Okay.
Yeah. This is like a while ago, a little while ago at least.
I love that kind of just means that 5G is a bit more real than we would like it to be.
yeah. Like this is the thing. Like 5G is coming out now as like a thing, but like it's been. Like people have been working on this for a long time.
Because is it mainly Nokia the drawback just the signal strength and the aerials and stuff and satellites?
Yeah, so like the difference with 5G to 4G is that one, the speeds are faster.
Right.
But what that means is that it goes on a different frequency, basically. From what I understand, at least, it goes on a different frequency, so it's at a different wavelength. But what that means is that the actual wavelength can't travel as far. So the big thing with 5G is like you can get way faster speeds, but the reason why it hasn't like got as much coverage as 4G and 3G and stuff like that is that you need way more antennas.
Right.
So you literally need like an antenna kind of like every
like, need like a more concentrated
like
source
as much as you I may be like wrong completely on the amount of distance here, but like think like, you know how many street lights you have just in a row, like that kind of thing. You need,
like for every house almost. Like,
basically, yeah. So you can get like proper coverage, so then you can actually utilize 5G to its full potential.
Because I'm thinking, maybe a way to do this in the future was that you would ping off of every cell phone you could, so that if there's a cluster of people, you're all pinging off each other, which would just create like a very concentrated source. I don't know if, because phones have outgoing signals, so I imagine they could. Because you can do hotspots and stuff, so it's like if they maybe like delve deeper into it, or if they research more stuff into it, like
I'd imagine that it probably runs into like a power issue that you wouldn't be able to like.
It's all battery.
You wouldn't be able to relay like the full power of a 5G signal. At least I don't think. I could be wrong. But anyway, when my dad was working there, every year, they had like a. like a family barbecue kind of thing.
Classic.
All the guys that worked in that particular branch had like, family barbecue, and like everyone could come. You had free food, free like ice cream, all that shit.
I just imagine your dad in like a scene of Fast and Furious, like family.
the good shit, basically. But and this is in Cambridge, bear in mind. So when I went one time, I must have been, I don't know, 14, 15.
Yeah.
This is when I was like really kind of starting to really get into photography, and I think at that point I must have been studying it at either GCSE or just going into sixth form, not sure.
It's usually like the last year of school that you start finding the pathway.
It was something like that, but so like a lot of the guys that my dad worked with were like these like really, really smart guys that are like, these are guys that studied like computer science, that have PhDs, like multiple, like really like geniuses, basically.
Yeah.
And like my dad was talking to this guy, and I was just sitting there with him, and then he just starts to like explain how like the physics of like the light and the photons and how that all works in a camera. And I think like I got like kind of to a point, and then I kind of like, I don't know, I found some kind of excuse to just leave, because I was like, this is just going way over my head. I don't get it.
Homework so you could come back and start again.
But yeah, he even gave me a book. It wasn't actually on like photography or anything like that, but it was some book on physics, and like I read through like a quarter of it, and I
you
just,
went,
like,
I want to do photography, and your dad went, here's a physics book. Like,
the guy gave it to me, not my dad.
Sorry, yeah.
But yeah, like he was explaining how like these lenses work and how the photons and like it all goes into the lens, and then the sensor interprets it. I was like, oh my god, this, like, I understood it to a point. And at this point, I can maybe understand it more if we had that conversation again. But like at the time, it was just so much for me. Like, what the hell?
I don't think I've heard the word photon since GCSE science.
Since school, since you've been in a class.
I just had like a real horrible shake of like, have I not done my homework? I was like, I don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah. So like photography, you can go so in depth on the details and the physics of how it actually works. But at the same time, like, you can keep it really simple and just focus on like the artistic side of photography as well.
Because I feel like people that lean more towards the digital side tend to be in it more for the aesthetic and the final art. Whereas like, say like Scott and anyone that like dabbles in more practical photography, what's the right word? Film photography. Like you know, and it's like, I feel like you've really got to know what you're doing, and that means just in terms of like the mechanics, the physics, like where you are, it's so much more important. Whereas if I'm working, I can take terrible photos and just know I can Photoshop half of it out.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm not having to learn the science of photography. I'm having to learn the art of Photoshop, and it's very different, but it all falls under similar blankets. Like with your final product, that is because like you don't know if the consumer would even tell, but like you know the process.
Well, I mean, there's a saying in photography, and it kind of applies to life as well, but so in photography, there's, I didn't
realize how closely photography and life were just physics, lifestyles. Like.
It's just things that kind of tie into each other. If you take like a small idea that's specific to whatever you do, you can kind of extrapolate it to like life, and then it usually applies.
Synergy is a bitch, man. It's the way of life. It
applies in a similar way. So in photography, there's a term that kind of goes that like, do it in the camera first, get it right in the camera, and then you don't have to fix it in post.
Right.
So basically, get it right the first time, and then you don't have to like do it a second time.
Right. Yeah.
So
measure
like,
twice, cut once.
That's So that's where
such different background, same lesson.
Exactly. It's like same lesson, just different saying, right?
Yeah.
So that's where film photography is really valuable, because you don't get like, you have a set amount of shots. It'll be 28 shots or 32 if you're doing 35 mil.
Yeah.
If you do like medium format, then you might get 12 shots maybe. So you have to like take your time to like look at the scene. Do I want to take this photo? Is it worth taking?
Yeah.
And then okay, so what's the lighting like? How should I approach this? What kind of look do I want? And then you kind of, change your settings, and then you take the shot.
Yeah.
Whereas with digital, it's way easier to just snap.
Well, I've noticed it more in like this kind of retro vibe that I've been seeing a lot more. Like a lot of bands now. There's one that I'm listening to at the minute. I think they're called Young Tones. It seems like a very Asian retro-inspired like jazzy band.
Okay.
And everything is shot in like a square frame, right? Obviously, it's all done in post. All the filter effects, they didn't shoot it in actual film. But now it's like, it's quite common to see people emulate the looks.
Yeah.
And it's becoming easier to do it.
I'm not a huge fan of that. I gotta be real.
I might be wrong. They might do it in
I
film,
get so many adverts on my phone, like on Instagram or whatever, for like different apps that are like, oh, like get this like VHS looking
Filters.
or like Kodak film.
Change your
It's
face.
like, I get it. I get like going for the aesthetic and just kind of editing your photos in a particular way. But
and it always
I think
costs like £30 to get the full package.
Exactly. It's like you download the app, you go check it out. There's one app called Prequel. I've seen ads for it
pretty sure
everywhere.
I've seen that before.
I fucking hate the app. I downloaded it. I tried it.
I'm really curious if I've got one on my phone.
It literally, like, I tried some different filters, and it takes forever to like load the filter on like one photo.
It's
and
not
I'm like,
built for rendering, is it?
yeah,
It's like
I'm like, what the hell isn't like? Okay, cool. Like you have different cool effects and shit, but I can't actually use them.
I do have it. I have. What is it? I have Prequel and Filter. I've never used them.
Get that off your app.
I'm gonna uninstall them.
Get it off your phone.
Okay.
I'll show you how to edit. No, but on
That's another thing is I
Precore,
have Adobe. Like,
Yeah.
why am I even bothering?
the thing is, right, it's good for people that like don't have Adobe, that don't have any experience at all, because it's just a quick way that you can edit your photos in theory, except it's not quick. Because I downloaded the app and I tried it, and I was like, I literally had to wait there for a few minutes just for the filter to load, and I was like,
That's horrible. Not even like rendering it. That's
Yeah.
just seeing it.
I mean, and to be fair, like, look, if you're editing a video and stuff, I have to sit there and just wait for it to render anyway.
Yeah.
But like, if you're doing it on your phone for the purpose of doing it quickly, it kind of defeats the point.
I think also Photoshop Express. Like I've used it on my phone just for like quick, easy photography.
Yeah.
I actually really like it.
Yeah,
It's super simple. Everything's a sliding bar. It's a bit like Instagram, and it's like I don't know if it's free, but like I know that anyone could use it. And
Yeah.
they could do
That's-
exactly what they could do on these. 10 times
That's
easier.
one area where Adobe has kind of excelled, because it's like
They've made it super convenient.
on computer, Photoshop is really complicated, or not really complicated, but it's like there's just a whole lot of stuff that it's not
Definitely
obvious.
puts new people off.
It's not obvious how you do a lot of things. Whereas I think what they've done with like even the apps on the iPad and the apps on the phone, which are just like kind of just mobile light versions of the bigger apps,
Yeah.
is they've tried to make it intuitive so anyone can use it. Because obviously at the moment there's competition from like Canva and Figma and all these like different like web-based apps
I do like
that are just trying to simplify it for like kind of like corporate like individuals or like smaller brands that don't have the money to pay a designer or don't have the money to hire someone or pay for the software.
I was thinking, right, obviously I've just walked through Wembley Box Park, right? And I've seen all the pride flags that are up. And then I had a thought, because I'm always thinking like, oh, they change this flag like pretty often. And what I mean by change is they add like new colors, all of that, and it's like there'll be like a pattern to it. And I was thinking,
Yeah.
since the first, I can't remember when the original pride flag came out, like the original rainbow color, right? That was one flag. Since then, companies every year have been able to produce a new flag, and it's like it's a really cynical take on it, but it was like every year, if they keep updating that flag, there is so much business just from that alone. There is like people that have to put the flags up, the posters up, all the rebranding, graphic designers get paid, flag companies get paid to make more. If it was all one flag, a bit like the British and American flags, like there is enough out there already. But if it's always new, it's always circular. It's a bit like superheroes. Every time they get a new costume, they get new toys. So why would you keep them?
I mean,
the same?
it's not necessarily like a new
It's not new at all.
like a
It's just
new
something I
flag per
noticed.
se. It's just that kind of like, no offense to that whole
I mean,
sphere of
I do mean the corporate side of this, by the way, not the actual movement or the community.
But I
at all.
think something that goes along with that is that like in the past 2 years, I've noticed that like there's been 2 or 3 letters added, and that's meant that 2 or 3 other like types of flags have been added to.
Because I thought that's what the plus was for, wasn't it? It was
well,
and
yeah,
everything else.
But it's like so you have like LGBTQ plus, and then
It's so bad. We
I
shouldn't
like
be talking
look.
about
I'm not qualified at all to comment on what
The
what
last
the
people.
other letters are, but it's like so with I know that with like pansexual, there's like a flag that goes along with that,
Right.
And for like gay, there's a
'cause
flag that
there's
goes along
individual
with
ones
that,
now. Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's why you have like, and now it's not just the rainbow; it's the rainbow plus the like
Other
it's like
flags.
light bluish, and then there's
it's the purple, the black, and
it's something like that. So that's why like kind of each year it kind of just gets updated with whatever the like latest.
That's what I think. I don't think
thing
it's
is.
necessarily the same. It's a coincidental
Yeah.
happiness for both sides.
Yeah.
The corporate side get a ton of money in their industries, and obviously they get a flag that represents them better.
Yeah.
But it's like neither of them are actively trying to work together here.
Yeah.
But like corporate just gets to like, "Ooh, I'll take a slice of that pie."
I mean,
like,
with Wembley over here, what I've noticed, obviously, I live here, so what I've noticed is one, they change it for events. That's when they change
Right.
it. So
It's
at
always
the
new.
moment, there's like some company that's building like all these new flats and stuff. All the development.
the one down the road.
Yeah.
It's just a full building now.
Yeah.
It looks really nice.
Yeah, it's like
a few months ago,
all
it
the
was nothing.
construction, like they're all just about finished, but now they're like getting done.
Dude,
it looks nice.
The speed at which this city, and same with New York, I mentioned, the way they expand now.
Yeah.
It's pop-up skyscrapers.
Yeah.
That's insane.
There's a building that I can just literally just down my road that when I moved in, it was, all covered in scaffolding, like they're still
Concrete.
finishing it off.
Yeah.
And now, like, I bet in like the next month it's going to be open. Like
It's like furnished now.
Yeah.
Like you see the work people like in the
Yeah.
the entrance.
Yeah.
Just chilling now. It's like
yeah. It's kind of crazy, but
Must be really satisfying to just finish a building like that.
Yeah.
Like to be a part of that. Like
Yeah. So there's a company that's like, I think it's like Quintain Living or something like that. They have their, I'm sure they pay for it because none of this shit is free. But it's like whenever there's not an event on, they have their flags on there. Like,
Right.
oh, like come live here, blah blah blah. And then so like recently, the weird thing about so June is the like Pride month, right? But then what I noticed is the LGBTQ flags were not up for like the entire month. Like I went
until the
I went to Portugal.
Friday, Saturday?
I went to Portugal midway through the month, maybe like on the 15th or 16th, something like that. That's when I left, and I was only there for like 5 days, something like that. When I came back, that's when I noticed that like they've changed the things. It's like finally it's up. So it was only there for like 2 weeks, which is, I don't know. I find that funny. Whereas like at work, we like basically like instantly changed like all our stuff to like have the
even
flag,
like Instagram graphics and
Yeah.
stuff all got updated.
the profile pictures.
Yeah.
I know that like a lot of people find it it's like an empty gesture because it's like, oh well, like you just for the month of July or
It's
June.
it depends what they do during that time. If they just put it up and expect like more money,
Like what's like BLM is like October or something, September, October,
Right.
something like that, and then like every brand does like the black logo, and people feel like it's just an empty thing, or, like. But
Yeah.
also, if they didn't do it, then people would be like, "Oh, they don't even give a shit."
well, this is the problem with a lot of issues that we have is no one's willing to meet in the middle, and no one's willing, especially talking about the middle. People hate talking about that grey area where people have to compromise. It's not left or right. It's not black and white. It's
Everyone's digging their feet.
yeah, and it's like if you you want the issue to end, right? Let's say, and you'll say that you want people to be more open and free, and we can talk about it. But then if people talk about it and it's not the exact thing that you want to hear, your first reaction can't be an outburst of rage and I'm gonna put you in the ground. It's like it's got to be right. Well, tell me where you're coming from.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
And then we're going to understand each other and why we're in these positions. And then maybe one of us will get more educated and we can find a happy solution.
Yeah, yeah.
That is how you end the issue.
Yeah.
What people rather do, as we all know, they'll hop on Twitter. They'll find the other side. Like, they'll find the opposite of what they want to see.
Yeah.
And they'll find it very intentionally the most dramatic thing. And then they'll plaster it over their socials. Fuck this guy, he's not with us, rah, rah. And then they'll do the same, and then that divide just gets further and further apart, right?
Yeah.
And it's like one side is quite, but like the other side, if you're preaching like peace and better humanity, you've got to be better. You've got to act better.
Yeah.
You can't be the same because otherwise you're just dragging yourself down.
Yeah, change starts from within.
Right. And and that community will only ever be as strong as its weakest links and its weakest members. Because if those people are dragging it down, the people that are dragging it up are just constantly feeling this weight pulling back on them.
Yeah, yeah.
You see it in every community, and it's always the minority of people
Sure.
that are just the loudest.
The vocal minority.
And so everyone just assumes
Yeah.
that they're the only people
Yeah.
in that group,
There was some video that I watched a while ago, and a guy said in it, so people don't listen with the intent of understanding or just hearing you out. People listen with the intent of responding, and that's like a really
Get their thing out.
Yeah,
like,
it's a really dangerous thing because it's like I'm just waiting for you to finish what you're saying so I can just say my piece instead of like waiting for you to finish what you're saying. But at the same time, like listening is a skill. Like it's an active skill that you have to like, okay, like what is this person saying, and like. It's called cognitive dissonance. It's like what are they saying that doesn't like align with what I believe in my head, and like it makes you reconsider like what could I be wrong about this thing or like, and even if you think about it and go, actually no, like I think my stance is still right, but it's that dissonance that makes you think about it and say like, oh, like is this right? Am I wrong? Like should I reconsider this? And that's where like change comes from. But yeah, it's really tough in today's day and age because
people will often like give you the answer they think they should give without a second thought, right? So when you say like you need to think about what you say, most people go, obviously, I've been told that 1 billion times. All right, but do you do it? Yeah, obviously, right, but you're not even thinking in this response, you're just saying it. And it's a really hard thing for people to get a grasp of. It's like you really need to take a second, follow it step by step before you go, oh, that's what it means. It's like, and it's the same with a lot of issues. You say, people just expect the right response without giving a second thought to it. Or it's like they might think about it at a very base level. This is good, this is bad.
Yeah.
But do they just sit on their own and think about it and research it and then go, okay, I have a better understanding. Next time someone asks me this, I'll give them my... Like, do you know what? It's just the time of actually taking account. Because what you're doing when you're supporting a message or you're being under a banner is you are representing it and you have a responsibility to those things, right? And if you're not doing your part...
It's segregation.
it's
literally
like
segregation.
Segregation for stupid people.
This is one thing, like, I'll stand by this. Is like, people are like, oh, like, you know, as communities, as this group, you know, we're being inclusive. And it's like, but like, assigning yourself to a group and to like...
It's inherently...
And it's like, and like, you know, basically battering anyone that doesn't agree with whatever your group says. By doing that is segregation. Like, it's not inclusive, it's actually exclusive. Like, I'll stand by that till I die.
Literally saying that I want these people, this group.
Yeah.
The rest of you, maybe you can join, but you'd have to prove yourself. What are you, mean girls in school? Like, calm the fuck down. If you're cool, we can have a chat. If I really like you,
that's
we
the
can hang
thing.
out
It's like,
afterwards,
look, I'm open to whatever. Look, like, I was raised a Christian. I was talking to my mum the other day, and I was like, look, like, I don't have, like, I'm not gonna call my mum out on it, but like,
on the podcast,
to you. No, but it's like, obviously, like, you know, a big issue in the Christian community is like, people just look at Christians and they go like, oh, well, you know, we know about these Christians in America that are like, they, you know, they're like anti-abortion, they're anti like
Westboro
gay, like
Baptist,
you know, all this shit. And it's like, yeah, it's wrong. Like, it's wrong. But it's like, as Christians, so we're taught to like be accepting and to be understanding and forgiving and all this kind of stuff.
Those are the tenets, like.
But then at the same time, it's like, oh, well, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. It's like, it's very convoluted and it's very like,
well, it's like, how can people
but it's like,
preach love and give so much hate?
Yeah, but it's like, life is not black and white. No. Like, there's you live in the grey area. That's where everything happens.
And
I think,
love it to be black and white because it's so much easier.
Yeah.
But it's not easy.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah. So from that perspective, it's like, I'm a Christian, or I consider myself Christian, like a raised Christian. But it's like, I don't have any issues with this. Like, just, you know, like, I'll hear you out. And it's like something I said to Scott when, like, around the time that I started uni, like, that was my first, like, going to uni has been like my first kind of experience with this kind of other side of culture that not that I wasn't aware of it. It's just that I never knew anyone in that culture.
Right.
And then since like knowing Scott, since meeting Anna and meeting Justina, Rebecca, all these different people, it's like,
uni alone, like,
they're just people. Like, it literally makes no difference. Like, yeah, their sexual orientation is different. They're interested in different people than I am, but
their culture, their race, their like whatever.
Like, it literally makes no difference because at the end of the day, we're all still people. We all still make mistakes. So it's like, yeah, that's where, like, it's not that like, oh, like, religion is bullshit, this is bullshit or whatever. It's just that, like, to each their own.
Yeah.
That's really it. It's like, to each their own.
I mean, right, so the perfect example, and I love this because she sums it up so perfectly. I have a work colleague. She's very, very cool. And I'm going to put just like a little disclaimer in the nicest way possible. She is a brown-skinned girl. I'm not entirely sure. You know, it's, you know, whatever. But
specifics, yeah.
To me, she's the most English person I've ever met. I'd argue more English than I am, right? Okay. Most people, because...
the Bristolian.
Yeah. Look, I'm from the open seas. I'm a bit of everything. But okay. But like, so everyone goes like, oh, where are you from? Mm-hmm. And I'm sure many people have heard this before. They go, where are you from? Meaning, why aren't you white?
Yeah.
And then she'll say, London. Or England, or something like that.
Yeah.
And then people go, yeah, but where are you from?
Yeah.
Or maybe the second question implying, where are your parents from? But it's like, again, if they're third generation, still London, still England.
Yep.
And people don't get this concept. And it's like, but to me, the culture is the important bit. Where you're born and where you're around that culture, that kind of defines where you're from, right?
Yeah.
And because of that, like, just like me, she'll watch Modern Family every night. And it's like, it's a very Western thing to do. Like, the bands we like, the music, and it's just like English through and through. And even they get annoyed when they get, because it's like, where do you think I'm from, dickhead? I'm from here. Like, and they'll even say it like an English person. You still go, yeah, but, like, it's it must be so fucking annoying. Right? Like, no one asked me that question. They know exactly where I'm from.
Yeah. I don't get it anymore. like for a little bit, but
Because
like
you used to have more of an accent.
I'm not actually sure because I moved at quite a young age, and I think at that age I kind of
You've always been well spoken, I imagine.
maybe
Mother.
but I think as well, when I moved here, I moved quite young. I was, I don't know, 7, 8 years old. And I think one thing, especially when you're a young kid like that, and you're switching completely different cultures, different country, different type of people entirely, it's like you want to fit in. So
Yeah.
I sound English. I
Don't know what to tell you
sound
guys.
like I've lived here my whole life, even though like I've lived the longer amount of time in the UK than in South Africa. But I still consider myself South African.
Those early years as well is your most important development.
Yeah,
and
so
the ages of 7
so
upwards.
it's like I spent primary school in England. I spent secondary school at 2 different like secondary schools, and then college as well. All in England. So
and
it's
that's
like,
a very specific English thing to go
yeah,
through.
like the same thing, like the music, my tastes, the way I speak, like
even the
what I
humor.
noticed
Like our humor's very very intelligent. I'd say, but like
So, but like when I was in school, and I tell people like, oh, or people would guess, I've had Greek, Italian, Spanish, like basically everything except for what I actually am.
I love that.
But
So
like,
depending on where you're from,
Yeah.
and how long ago you moved to England, I love that. There's always like a selection of maybe 3, right? So I've known a lot of Polish people that have lived here for a while, and obviously like my favorite thing is about that accent is it turns very American when it gets introduced to English.
Right.
And so most people will go, oh, are you American? Are you Irish? Are you? But no one would ever say, are you Polish or are you English? They go American or Irish. And it's a really fun mutation of the accent to this one.
It also it also depends on the type of English that you learn. Like for me in South Africa, oh my god, I've had this question before.
Sorry, I think you mean South Africa.
So I've had this question before. So like, what language do they speak in South Africa? And I'm like, English, motherfucker. Like, what the fuck?
Read a book.
English, of course. Like, what do you think? Speak like what, Swahili or something? No, it's like, yeah, there's other languages, but English is the primary.
It's like, I speak Dutch.
Yeah.
They'd be like, no, you don't. It's like, okay, so you know that much then.
So, yeah, like, I've had people like looked at me surprised where they're like, oh, like English is a language, or I've told people before like, oh, I'm South African, and they're like, but you're white. I'm like, oh,
jeez, here we go again.
Like, do you know anything about the South African history, like at all?
Like, because if you did, you'd probably know.
You could connect those 2 dots really quickly.
It's like there's so many like famous like things like that, like the partition, apartheid. Sorry.
Yeah.
Fuck's sake, this is how uneducated I am.
You motherfucker. It's you.
It's like obviously like. I know the ones that are closest to me, if that makes sense. Like the ones that affected our country the most, you're more likely to learn. But ironically, we were like one of the biggest fucking factors in half of the shit around the world. But it's like we're not really taught about a lot.
Yeah, South Africa is part of the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
We
what
also,
did we learn?
like,
We learned Civil War and we learned Egyptians.
Yeah. So this is what as well. So like it depends on how you learn English. Like in a lot of other countries, they learn American English, and that's where you get like you
in like international schools especially.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like when they learn English, it's with the American accent. And as well, what a lot of people do to learn English is they watch TV.
Right.
And
Friends or something like that.
What is all the content that we watch, majority of it all comes from America. So
no one's watching Downton Abbey to learn English.
No one's watching The Crown.
Hello, sir. Where are you from?
No one's watching what's that show? What's that one where they do like nothing?
What, the one that's set in like a British village?
Yeah,
where I'm from essentially.
No, the one where it's like that guy that's like doing rapping or something like.
Oh, MC Grinder.
Yeah.
Oh, this is our country? No, that's the other one.
People just do nothing.
That's the one.
It's like people don't realize like that's what English people actually kind of sound like.
Oh, I love it because what is it? It's all like drum and no, it's like a really specific music, but like
I think it's like drum and bass, EDM,
it's so
house music. I couldn't finish that series; it fucking pissed me off.
I love stuff like that. It's like because it's such a
It was too
chavvy culture.
It was too mind numbing for me. It like the thing is, it is cool. Like people just do nothing.
Or is it?
And I was watching
Chubbs,
it.
He always had like a new business idea. It was just some shitty scam.
Yeah.
It was like he was talking about how he had all these packets of peanuts, but they were all just peanut dust. So he was just trying to go around selling boxes of peanut dust.
Yeah.
And it was like next
Yeah,
episode
yeah.
that shit's gone.
Yeah.
Oh no, I think they used all the boxes of peanut dust to soundproof the apartment for their radio station. Oh, I think it's actually really close to mine as well. It was like, I don't know, it's really...
But it depends where you learn the language, how you learn the language. Like that's something I'm trying to do now, right? So like my whole family's Portuguese, but my parents always spoke English at home. And then it's like, they're like surprised that I don't speak Portuguese. It's like, what? I was just meant to get it by osmosis. Just like, oh,
genetically, I have learned
that's the
this
thing.
language.
Like I can understand, like if someone's talking to me or like my mum's talking to me, like I can kind of understand what they're saying because I've like if we're around family or stuff, that they speak in Portuguese. But like,
Well, even
I
Italian,
can't just.
Italian's really emotional, so you can usually pick up on like cues.
So it's like I can't speak it just because like you don't just get information by osmosis. Well, I speak the language. That would be awesome.
Most people know that language in your early years, like as a baby, it's all just from repeating it back.
Yeah.
So whatever so I think
it's immersion.
So there's two ways of learning languages. There's when you're a child, you learn it more emotionally, and it's more of like a call and response. And then as an adult, you have to do it intellectually, where you actually have to study the language and learn it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I find that really interesting. So as a child, if you want them to speak a language, do it then, because then they'll just know it. Like as an adult.
Yeah. So like now, like kind of what I have to do is kind of look like, oh, how do other people learn languages? Like, oh, like watching TV. It's like, okay, well, there isn't as much like widely available
Just
TV
watching,
shows
like, Portuguese soap operas, like
but the thing is, like, I have to try and find them. What are the names of these shows?
Right.
Like, what platform are they on? How can I watch, a whole series or whatever? Whereas, like, obviously, English content, it's very prevalent everywhere. Yeah. I watched Narcos, Mexico, or just Narcos, and it's all in Spanish. So it's like I was picking up obviously all the bad words, but I was picking up like Spanish, like it was nothing.
Like a drug dealer. Chapo. Chapo.
Yeah, but it's like
Ciao.
So it's like so I've been using Duolingo, but the issue with that is that like Duolingo is very like just broken up grammar, and just like the grammar is wrong.
Yeah.
And like they put words in weird places, or it's not even like relevant. Like the first 5 modules that you do, it's just like words, but none of them are actually like anything you would need to or want to say.
It's easier to learn phrases and words. Right?
Yeah, it's like teach me like, can I order this? Can I get this? Or like, where can I find this? Or I don't speak I don't speak Portuguese. Or like, how much is this? Like the actual shit. Like if you were to go on holiday, you'd want to know these words.
The words for
that's
currency,
not what Duolingo teaches you.
Also, that's another thing. Is not only is our currency really annoying for like people coming over and exchanging their currency. Also, I don't say it like how they would expect to hear it. They expect to hear £3.42p, right? I say 3.42. Already, I can imagine that's really fucking confusing because that sounds like 342.
Yeah.
And it's how I speak because like English people just tend to understand it. If I say 10.85, it's £10.85.
Yeah.
But again, like if you're still very new to the language, you've only ever heard it in a very specific way. You point out the pounds and the pennies, right? And there's an emphasis on it.
The Brits also do that with time. So it's like you'll say it's like it's 22.
Yeah.
But it's like it's 20 to what?
It's 5-2. Yeah.
It's 5-2. It's like
they just expect you to know the previous hour.
5 to 2, 5 to 3. Like, be specific.
5 minutes past 3 hours.
This was like something like we noticed like very early on. It's like be specific about your times. There's all kinds of cultural differences. But yeah, like it's kind of crazy.
Do you know how long we've got so far on the timer?
40 minutes.
Left.
No, we can record as long as we want.
Well, we're only 14 minutes in.
40.
Oh, shit. Okay.
We've been recording for a while.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I was like, time just went. Obi-Wan, question mark?
Yeah.
I mean, the funniest thing is I don't have much to say about this show at all. I actually have more to say about Miss Marvel, and I don't even want to talk about that show. So we'll just go from there, Nick.
So, okay.
As our resident Star Wars expert.
I don't know, I would kind of say that for the most part, these recent shows from Disney, Star Wars and Marvel, and whichever company they've absorbed, I think they're all very forgettable. then they're kind of shit.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. Like, yeah, I think the idea of like how they've been releasing them like week by week, it's cool because, you know, when you're in it, there's some anticipation for the next one. But I think for the most part, it's just been like, it gets to like midway through the season and then the quality just drops off, and then the last episode is good, and then like that's it.
That's another thing is, I don't think it was the difference between formatting it originally as a 6-episode run means the writers and the directors can plan it out to be 6 episodes.
Yeah.
This feels like a short film that was bolstered by about 6 hours.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
I got to be real, I'm not a huge fan of this like, oh, let's just do like 6 to 8 episodes. Like, it sucks because it's
unless
like
you've got a reason for doing it.
You really can't like really like dive into any kind of character development. It's just like one short kind of plot line,
bit, yeah.
And that's it. It really leaves no room for
they
like
sprinkle development out for like 5 minutes per episode.
Yeah,
like, you know.
it's really like, I think it's a bit restrictive on the story, and yeah, like,
because let me ask you this: if you took away all the really cool Darth Vader scenes that they put a lot of time and effort into,
it would be dog shit.
This show is basically EastEnders in space.
It's not about Kenobi either. No. That's the worst. That's the worst thing about it. It's about Leia and Reva. It's like, okay, cool, but if you wanted to make a story about those characters, then make a show about those characters. Don't just like anchor it off of another character that's established. Like, I think that's such dog shit, and I think it's false advertising. It's like, you've hyped the show up as like, this is Obi-Wan, it's like he's coming back, or like this is it's going to fill in the gap of what happened in between that period of, you know, the 6 movies in between the saga. But like, it's not really about Kenobi. Like, you're just using Kenobi's name as like the nostalgia and the anchor to like, oh, people are like, oh, it's Kenobi, anchors you in. And then it's like, oh, it's actually about 10-year-old Leia, but who's like far too wise for her age, like far too kind of snarky and self-aware. It's like, that's a fucking 10-year-old.
It was jarring.
It was.
That's another thing is, they get away with it with Obi-Wan a little bit because he's already had so much development in like several other things, several better things. Problem with Reva is brand new, undeveloped, no one cares. I hate them. Like, I don't care why they're in that show. It felt like they had no reason to be there, other than to cause a scene. Also, even story-wise, there are so many, and it's like little things you can get away with, especially with Disney products. But there was just so many conflicting things that was like, why are you doing... Like, I didn't believe any of the characters would actually do anything that happened.
Yeah.
Everything just made no sense. And then shit just kind of happened.
I think one of the big issues as well with this, like, whole... the way that Star Wars... or the way that Disney has been doing these new Star Wars content is that they're not doing anything new. And so what they're doing is they're trying to fill in these gaps in the storyline of, you know, the 9 films, but the issue is that there's no stakes. Like, we know what's going to happen. So it's like in the Kenobi series, Darth Vader and Kenobi face off, but we know that there's not really
much you can do.
There's no stakes, because we know that none of them are going to die, because we know that they appear in the next movie.
Same with Leia.
As well with Leia. And then, so it's like, well, he's also not going to like get an arm chopped off or like anything like that, because, well, he has an arm in the next movie. So it's like, like when they were doing, Anthony and Joe Russo, right? When they were doing like Captain America Civil War, and they were doing like Infinity War and Endgame, they said on purpose, like, they kind of wrote themselves into a corner in order to, like, you know, they have to solve how do we beat Thanos by, like, if we remove all this kind of shit, how do we actually beat him, right? Whereas with Star Wars, they haven't written themselves into a corner. They've just chosen the corner and gone like, oh, well, this is what we're going to... Instead of like developing anything new, they're just focusing on nostalgia. And I think it's complete dog shit. Like, Boba Fett was rubbish. Kenobi was rubbish, because they're just using nostalgia and, oh, this character already exists, people like them, and that's enough to make a whole series about it. But they don't really add anything to it.
My favorite bit, easily... was the bit where we spent almost a whole episode with a mole man and a little red laser gate. Like a little red laser gate that at any point during this episode, they could have walked around.
Yeah.
it doesn't even go up the fucking cliff. There's literally gaps.
Yeah.
And they at one point, there's no one there. Just walk around. And it's just this whole episode where they're just sat in a truck. It's a bit awkward. And then they're like, oh, there's a gate there. What do we do? This is Star Wars. And now we're waiting at check lights.
I'm not a fan of Disney either. Like, they haven't really fucked with the story too much, but they also have. Like, I'm not a fan. Like, leave George Lucas's stuff alone and go do your own stuff. Like, Mandalorian, I think, for the most part, has been really well received, and in my opinion, is really good content.
I love it.
It's some of the best Star Wars that we've had.
I love that it really leaned into the Western side of Star Wars.
But what has it been? It's been like 12 to 13 episodes long. Each episode is like 40 to 50 minutes long. Like,
it all has a start, middle, and end.
Hour-long episodes, and they like really dive into something. Whereas like Boba Fett, it's like, what, 8 episodes? Kenobi, it's like 8 episodes, and it's like the first episode will be 40 minutes, next one, 25, next one, 30, the next one. Like, there's no consistency.
So that's another thing, like, storytelling-wise. I think usually in a TV show, you'd have that episode-to-episode, start, middle, end. There's a big story every time, and that's really important. And then you have the overarching story that feeds it all together, right? So Kenobi just kind of went in a straight line. Just kind of went, here's what it is. And you're going to watch us do it all. Just in kind of one smooth motion.
Because I was watching some review, and they basically said, like, that nothing's changed. Like, from the start of the series to the end.
Status quo, like, yeah.
Kenobi's the same. Like, he starts off as just, like, he's watching Luke, and, you know, he's just, you know, kind of detached from the Force. The only difference is at the end he's back with the Force, but he's just watching Luke again. Like, nothing's changed. Like,
when you think of Obi-Wan during this time, you think of a little hermit in a cave watching Luke, and that is it.
It's just gone like full circle, and like that's it. It's like,
they must have just forgot that he went on this whole fucking adventure with Leia at one point, and then just forgot about Luke for a whole. We saw Luke a little bit at the start.
Honestly, I think Star Wars was better with the mystery. Like, Boba Fett as a character was better before they removed his fucking helmet and made him speak.
If you're gonna go through the effort of destroying the mystery that people love, you have to give a very fucking valid reason to do so. Mandalorian with the helmet did it very well, I think. Pedro Pascal did not show his face. Like, he didn't need to be on screen.
Yeah.
But the few times he was, in that first season especially, it was... You knew it was important.
Yeah, because there was stakes to him removing the helmet.
And you could see how he was changing because of those decisions in all aspects of his life.
The other thing is, in Boba Fett, like, half of it wasn't even about him. There was like 2 or 3 episodes that were just basically like... They were just Mandalorian episodes stuck in the Boba Fett series. It's like, why would you do that?
There's that one episode for about 40 minutes where Boba Fett just isn't in it.
It was like 2 episodes, because it's there's like the first one with
he comes back, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's like the first one where he like gets Grogu, and then the second one where
in space with like you're on about back in Mando season.
No, in Boba Fett, there's like two whole episodes where like he doesn't even fucking appear in it. It's rubbish.
Because they were like, we're just gonna continue Mando for a bit so we can go back to season 3 afterwards.
Like, what it says to me is like, Disney really doesn't have like a clear direction that they want to go in.
They also don't have any faith in their projects.
Yeah, because all they're doing is all the news that you hear about like the Disney Star Wars stuff is that like, this has been cancelled. There's a new director. Creative differences, this, that, the other. And you're like, okay, so it's very clear that like creatively Disney wants to do one thing, which is like push what's right, like the right messaging at the moment. That's what they're doing. God, yeah. Let's be real. That's what they're doing.
The film, where they had that one scene of 2 women kissing, but it was a separate shot so they could cut it out for overseas audiences. I don't know if you knew about this, but it was literally like they put it into the Americans and the English, and everyone else would go, they do support gay people. But then overseas in like China, cut out immediately.
Didn't they do that in Buzz in the new Lightyear film?
In so many films, dude.
Yeah.
It's always edited so that it doesn't offend people overseas, but it also doesn't offend people over here for not offending people.
I saw there was some cinema in Texas or I don't know. I want to say it's Texas because as far as I remember, that's what it said. Where for this new Lightyear film that they did, there's a scene of 2 women kissing. He's like, cool. Like, what's wrong with that? but they put like a fucking warning on the like the door to enter the cinema, just saying like, oh yeah, we can't get rid of it, or no, I think they removed it. They did something to like, oh, like they put some kind of warning basically saying like, oh yeah, there's this scene in it, like we're sorry if it offends you. It's like, it's such bullshit.
What harm is it to a child if he sees a man and a woman kiss? Oh, that's all right, but like the same gender, they're like, you can't show that to children, it will mess them up.
When I was a kid, like if there was like not even like a sex scene, but like someone kissing or anything like that, my parents will like cover my eyes. Like, it's not for you to look at. So I don't know. I think it's one. If you don't like that shit, then
It's not for you to look at. It's like,
honestly, cinema is not for you anymore. If that's something that really bothers you.
do you know what? Cinema's not for many people anymore. It's just like, you always go there expecting something, and it's always different. It's usually worse, I imagine.
I think that the one big thing for me is that like, you can really tell that it's like that there's just no. I'm not excited for anything anymore. It's like,
sometimes an episode would come out and it would be until the next one I didn't even notice.
It's the same thing with like gaming right now. It's like anytime there's a new film or a new game released, and then you just see like, okay, who's the director? Who are the main like actors? And then I'm like, okay, I don't want to watch it. Because you can just already see it's like, this film isn't going to be about like, let's create a fantastic story. It's just going to be about what is like the right messaging that we can put in this. How can we like, you know, kind of just milk the money out of this? And it's like, well,
I spend so much of my time just watching older things that I haven't seen that I know are good than even take a chance on half the newest shit.
Yeah.
I'd rather play the same 4 games that consistently make me happy than even try some of the dog shit that comes out.
It's kind of funny that like, the one game that I think everyone returns to is Minecraft, because it's like, it's just straightforward. There's no BS. There's like,
I'm really glad you mentioned Minecraft, because we are I don't know if you've been on recently. We've got a realm, and we didn't touch it for a while. We made like a little progress. Then my flatmate came on, and he's been rinsing it. So I've been rinsing it, and it's like, we're genuinely just, every time you're like, I'll never get back into Minecraft, and we always do, because Minecraft is inevitable. In another year, I will rebuy that realm, and we'll put another fucking month into it, and then never touch it again. And I love it. It's always there for you when you need it.
Exactly. It's just that one game where it's like, I know that like,
I don't appreciate having to buy it all the fucking time, like Skyrim. I will mention that. Because when I bought it on my Switch, I expected to be able to play it on my Switch, and then it doesn't even work on the realms, and so it's just another £20.
It's because there's
Microsoft.
the different versions of the game. They need to unify that.
Mojang was so much friendlier, but Microsoft makes so many more updates, so it's like...
That's like the one, they update the game every year, and the one thing that Minecraft does that I rate over every other company that's making games is that every year they have Minecon, or whatever the fuck the conference is called. And I mean, basically, they're asking kids to vote, because realistically, that's who's playing it consistently.
Do you want to join my Minecraft server?
But
dedicated web.
What they do every year is they give you a vote on like, oh, these are the like, we have like 3 different mobs that we're doing, they let you vote, and then they do like,
force then, like.
So basically, they let you choose what they're gonna put into the updates, what they're gonna focus on.
Something like Minecraft as well.
And that's like all this like the update that they did recently with like the caves and cliffs thing, like that was all like
such a big update.
Fans voted on that because they had been asking it for ages. They were like, oh my god, update caves. And then they did it.
New
like,
B update.
Oh my god, they actually did it. Like, dude,
like the funnest thing.
How often does that happen?
Like going through Minecraft again, it's just seeing all the shit that we haven't seen yet. Scott was just telling me about every new mob there is. He's like, fuck, dude. He's like, there's foxes, there's bears, there's like all of this shit. There's like, there's bees, and I was like,
for a while it was just like dolphins. And now they've just added everything.
Like now you can just see fish in the water, and if you want, you can just kill them. Like it. But I was saying to Scott, right? If you play Minecraft modern day, you kind of expect Minecraft to be this massive thing, right? But if you were ever lucky enough to play it genuinely back when it was closer to vanilla, everything just feels like a really cool bonus. And it's such a different way of looking at it, because you expect the basics, right? You know what basic Minecraft is, so all the new shit feels huge, and it's all for free. If you buy Minecraft now, that's just the state you expect it to be. And I don't feel like that hits as hard as like going through every year and finding new shit, and it's like that's why people come back to it. It's so good in that sense.
The polar opposite is Pokemon, But the issue with Pokemon is they make you like rebuy a new game every year. But it's like the two franchises that have just been going, and the reason why I think everyone likes them is because they grew up with it. But they've just stayed true to what made it good, and they've just continued to iterate on it.
They got it.
Whereas like Minecraft, you just you buy it once, either like the Bedrock edition or the Java edition for your computer, and that's it. Like it just updates. You don't have to pay for the updates. It just comes out. You can download it and like that's it. Whereas Pokemon, like you have to.
Well, it's Nintendo's
new
MO,
platform, new game.
Nintendo do this thing where they'll revolutionize something, and as soon as that formula is down, they will reuse it and just refine it a little bit every time. So Pokemon's always got a new little thing, or it's got like now like the quality of life issues. It's really easy just to do the same formula.
Yeah.
But it is the same formula. But then they're doing what they did with Zelda. Zelda was always very samey, and then similarly with Mario, you'd have the main games that were the same.
Yeah.
But then you'd have that spin-off that kind of took a chance, right? But then with Breath of the Wild, that was the first time they took a chance on like a mainline series. And now Pokemon, they had like a little test run with Arceus, which was like the open world one. I've never played it, but there's a new one coming out.
Right.
It's going to be like it's going to be Breath of the Wild Pokemon edition, right?
Right.
Like properly. And I'm interested because I want to buy it because Breath of the Wild was crazy. But like I'm noticing like they kind of wait a while before they'll try and change that formula up big time, right? A lot of it was done but they usually do it with the console. Like with the Wii, they kind of had to change everything.
Right.
But the Switch is like a really nice middle ground.
That's a huge thing as well. Is like, when Nintendo did the Wii, and people were like, it's dog shit. They did the Wii U, and people were like, oh, they're finished. Like that's it.
No
like,
one bought the Wii
it's
U.
there's no more. There's not gonna be like another like home console for sharing.
I don't know if I
mentioned
mentioned this, but there were some really good games that only came out for the Wii U, and they just didn't port them to Switch. The only time they've remade Wind Waker, Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, which is my favorite one, is the super cartoony one. They made a HD like 60 FPS one for the Wii U. Still haven't got it on Switch. It's been fucking years, mate. Just port it. I want the game so badly, but I refuse to buy a fucking Wii U.
Yeah.
And it's like, but I think that's why they do it.
Yeah.
Is you'll buy a Wii U to play it.
But people thought like like Wii U, it's shit. You can't get like great games.
So
Blah,
bulky as well.
And then like they announced the Switch, and people are still apprehensive. Like, oh, it's too small. It's not going to be powerful enough.
Power to the Switch.
Or like people were so apprehensive, and now people are like, oh, I want a Switch. I want Animal Farm. I want fucking Mario Odyssey. I want all this shit.
Animal Crossing.
Animal
Stardew
Crossing.
Valley.
That's the one.
I have Animal Farm.
I have Stardew Valley on my PC. I
still don't understand how to play it. It intimidates me too much.
It's an interesting concept. It's just like you have to.
If you got into it, I'd imagine it's really satisfying.
It's the same with Terraria. If you get into it, like it can be such a time soak.
They're such simple looking games, but they scare me more than Minecraft because Minecraft kind of makes more sense to my brain.
Yeah,
I love it. Though. I'm glad we covered a lot. We got games, we got Obi-Wan out of the way because I don't want to talk about that shit again. I kind of refuse to watch Miss Marvel, so don't expect it. I mean, if it's good, it's kind of a dog shit show with some really high budget graphics.
I watched whichever episode I watched with you. That was it.
It was bad.
I think at least for me. For Miss Marvel, I'm just seeing it like that show is made for a younger audience, so I'm just like
it's a bit like the Star Wars Rebels to Clone Wars. You know
what I
mean?
It's like I don't want to sit here and like fucking be like just rip into this show and then
it's like ripping into any kid's show. It's like you don't feel good about it.
Yeah, it's not made for me.
It's like because you got some shows like I'd call them not kid shows but accessible shows. SpongeBob is accessible for most audiences.
Yeah.
Power Rangers, younger audience, right? And it's like there's two types. Even though it can be aired for kids and watched by kids, the level of quality, if it's high enough, it can be enjoyed by fucking anyone, right? And like that was the thing. Like Clone Wars could have been watched by kids, and it could have been watched by adults, and everyone loved it.
I mean,
Rebels,
I watched Clone Wars growing up, and then I watched all of it.
Again,
I watched all of it once it all like came out on Disney Plus.
If it's good. And you get to relive it as an adult, and it's better. You like because as a kid, the most common thing is you love something, and then as an adult, you go, "Oh, this is really fucking stupid," and then like you just lose that love.
Yeah.
But if something's that good, and then you come back to it, you go, "Oh my god, it's better."
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, it feels so.
That's
good,
the thing.
man.
Like with Clone Wars, it was like obviously as a kid, like you love it because you just don't have that that like critical thinking of like, oh, this is good, this is bad, or whatever.
Being a kid is fun.
It's just like, oh my god, it's Obi-Wan. Oh my god, it's Anakin, or like whatever.
Every time you hear the
oh, it's fucking Grievous. But then like, so I watched it whenever Disney Plus came out, and like we finally got a subscription. I went and watched back like all the seasons. I watched it in just like release order. I didn't watch it in, because like Clone Wars was the same as the movies. They never release anything in the right order.
They just tell little stories.
I think Star Wars and Disney are incapable of just doing a linear story. They're like, nope.
One person, one story.
We're gonna do
the
the middle first, then the prequel, and then the sequels. It's like,
who knows who's gonna make the movie?
It's like, so it makes it hard to watch it as a fan. But I watched it in the way they released it, and it's like, what I found is like the first 2, maybe 3 seasons are like, they're a bit, it's very like kiddie, and they're still kind of finding their stride. But seasons 4 through 7 are like, they really start to nail it. Like they nail the storytelling. It's just a shame the show didn't continue past that.
As well, I very rarely will ever tell someone to watch the first season of a TV show. Always Sunny, Community, Modified. I know, because it always gets funnier. About 3 or 4, season 3 or 4, right? And then by season, depending on how many they are, it just, because they refine it and they get good at it, and the money goes up, so it just becomes such a better experience. The first season is always like is it gonna make it? Is it gonna be? It's a very stressful, risky season. It's like Always Sunny. Everyone knows that show, starring Danny DeVito. First season doesn't have him, and when people go back and watch it, especially like someone like Jamie, who'll watch it in my room, so we're always on like season 7, right, or onwards. When he went back to watch season 1, and there's a whole season where he's just not there, not mentioned, and you're just like, when the fuck is he like arriving? Is he late? Like, and there's so many things like that, and it's a very common TV thing. I think it's like
I think most shows have like 2 or 3 really good seasons, and then the rest is just
that's the worst,
because that like you said, like season 1 is usually like the, it's like the growing pains. They're just kind of figuring it out, and then like season 2 is usually like really good, season 3 really good, season 4 maybe really good, or just like good. And then after that's when like the studios are like, oh no, we have to keep the show going so we can make money. And once money comes into the equation, it just
they're
goes
not
to shit.
thinking artistically anymore. They're thinking
It's just
business.
like, oh, how can we continue this so that people keep watching and keep the money rolling in? Like,
I mean, because like my favorite is like when comedy shows will have like sponsors. But the thing is with comedy shows is they can have a lot more room with those sponsors.
They have a lot more levity.
They don't just have to pander to the audience. They make jokes out of it. They work it into it. And it's like, it's really clever. But there's also the opposite where...
Mary's berries.
just like a random GoPuff advert in the middle. Like, Scott was asking me to watch Prison Break recently. And I've heard of it. I knew a lot of people that watch Prison Break.
I never finished it.
It's a lot of seasons. But it's the opposite, where the first few seasons are premium quality. But I think he said like he didn't watch season 3, but then onwards it just becomes a very not good show. So he said like, I'd only expect you to watch season 1, maybe 2. And it's like, it's weird because when you say how many seasons they go 14, and you go, you're expecting to watch all 14, and then someone goes, stop it the second one if you want. And it's just like, that's just kind of how TV shows, you find the good bits and then you kind of forget the rest, but that's life.
I don't know. It's like the opposite of what Netflix is doing. It's like, I think traditional TV, they just keep it going. Like 20 seasons, just keep it going. Just keep it releasing it. And then what Netflix does is like, we'll do 2. We'll give you 2 tops and then cancel.
It's a really good show. The season did really well. Okay, we'll do something else.
People love it. People want another season. Nah.
We're just going to make more Stranger Things, so you can go.
I mean, my dad, when I was in Portugal...
By the way, Stranger Things, very good. I very much enjoyed it. I don't know if you haven't caught up. It's very enjoyable. Most people very like it. If you've probably heard the song on social media too much.
Running Up That Hill?
Yeah, that one. And it's just like every TikTok, every Instagram reel, every story on my post. Apart from the aggressive nostalgia baiting that show does, and how much people fought for it, it is a very good show, and I did enjoy it.
The amount of merch they can sell just by like making things look vintage. Vintage,
VHS. It's on cassette.
I love that.
So
What was it? The other day, last
Yeah,
week,
but it doesn't sound good.
when we were walking, where did we go? We were by like Charing Cross.
Yeah.
And we were walking through whatever area it was, and I was like, I bet you all these vintage stores are just like vintage clothes, but it's just being like reprinted.
Yeah, it was made this year.
Yeah.
But it looks 20 years old.
Vintage clothes from 2008. It's not vintage.
Fresh, brand new vintage clothes.
Yeah, it's just emulating a look. It's like, okay, I get that, but don't advertise it as vintage.
It's like buying a brand
bullshit.
new second-hand car.
It's the same thing with the filters that we were talking about. It's like, oh, like
cheating your
Kodak
way.
filters. It's like, it's not Kodak. Like, if you shoot on film, it gives you a very specific look.
Yeah.
Even if you try and emulate that digitally, it's like you can get close, but it's still not the same.
Because the actual image was captured just in a
Exactly.
sharper image.
Exactly,
Or, whatever.
yeah.
That's, yeah. Okay, I think we've got website.
Yes.
New announcement.
Announcement. By the end of this month, July, at early August, we'll have a website launched. We're going to have a section for, like, I'm just going to call it a blog for now. We don't have a name for it or what's the official title, but we're going to have kind of like journalism in a somewhat official capacity. We've got potentially an editor. I'm not going to announce that yet, but I think it'll be good. And then with that as well, we're going to have a section for different artists, myself, Mason, our friends. You know, we can put our stuff on there. We can put merch. We can put all our stuff, connect it all, bring it all in one place.
I'm really excited. We've like last year it was very slow because it was mainly the foundations.
Yeah.
But we're at that point now where we're getting opportunities coming in and we're like, we just have to take them.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited because the longer we do this, the more people are seeing us as a bit more real. And the more people, like the more times that every time we ask someone, do you want to work with us? The answer is more commonly going, yeah, that would be really fun. Like,
Yeah.
it's becoming more of like an exciting thing. And that's what we really want. The website, I think, will be crucial. And I'm really excited to get that off the ground. Like,
Yeah.
it will be refined, and it will just keep being better and bigger.
Sure.
And that will be kind of our main space. I
Yeah,
think if you
I think
need
so.
us or if you want us.
Yeah. I think, I mean, the difficulty is like with social media platforms is like you can only do so much.
You're kind of managing an audience that's already there, I imagine.
Yeah.
More than reaching out to find new stuff.
Yeah, like you want a website as a centralized place where people can go like, okay, you know, I don't know. So for example, Artemis, she does like the artwork for the podcast covers. Like that is done by our friend Artemis, right? It's like, so if someone sees that and says like, oh, I want something like that, or she does animation, I need to hire an animator, like go to our website. We'll have a little page. You can, you know, see some of her work. You can see a little bio, maybe a picture, and then, you know, there'll be a way to contact them. Or,
That's the thing, because
you know,
you'd be able to find them in the descriptions of most of the things, their stuff. But if it should just be second nature that if you want one of us specifically, you want to find one of us,
Yeah.
the website would just be the guaranteed place
yeah,
to do
this
that,
is
like.
where like we kind of start turning into more of like agency. But I think like it's not something that we have to be like, oh,
we still plan on doing productions.
Yeah,
and
it's
stuff,
like we aren't just gonna be like, oh, we're a design agency and that's what we do. I think like the part of the point of what we want to do is kind of have
a bit of everything.
have our fingers in a lot of things, because like why not? We're able to, so why
and
not?
it's like if we've got people in our community and they're doing their own thing, I fully expect them to be in everything else. Not obviously to a degree, whatever they want to do and stuff. But it's like the podcast. It's like anyone can come on. We can have a rotating cast. You know, we could if we do shows. Like if we have a cameraman for one thing, chances are they'll probably be on the next thing, right?
Yeah.
And it's like there's so many things like that I think I'm so excited. I'm so excited to have me and you on one end of a podcast room and a little sofa in the middle for all of our buddies to come join. It'd be fucking sick.
That would be
like,
awesome, yeah. I think gone are the days where it's like you're just one thing. Like I don't think anyone is.
You wouldn't get a job.
Yeah,
You'd be fucked, especially
like,
in this industry.
That was when I was thinking about going to uni and stuff. At that time, I was like, I'd been doing photography for a while. I had a lot of experience already, and like I thought, like, oh, like I could just be a photographer. But I think the issue is like you can't just be one thing anymore. It's like,
I think when you specialize to such a degree, you've actually narrowed your options down a fair bit.
Yeah,
Because
I think,
it's like, right, you're amazing at camera work. How are you with people? How are you in a team?
Yeah.
All these other skills or like all these other things you might be asked to do.
Yeah.
It's like if you can only do one of them really well, then like a lot of jobs are just going to be off the
yeah,
table.
because it's just inevitable in the world we live in right now. Everything is going to video, right? Everything is going to like short form,
Online.
vertical video. So it's like, okay, so if you're a photographer, one, you gotta like first of all, how are you getting work? And then two, it's like all the platforms to get yourself out there are now switching to prioritizing videos. So how are you going to get people to notice you?
Yeah.
Just like things like that. It's like, okay, well, if you're a photographer and someone asks you, hey, like, can you do this video for me? Obviously, you want to say like yes. But if you're like, actually, I don't know how to do video, then they're just gonna move on to someone else.
They're gonna find someone that has done video and can do it.
Yeah, so that's where it's like, I think it's really valuable, as best as you can at least, to like
just have a foundation.
Whatever your like your primary skill is, right? Like mine's photography. It's like, teach yourself video as well. Learn how to shoot video. Learn how to edit video.
It's like, even if you want to work on film, learn digital regardless. Because it's so prevalent.
If you want to do a podcast, right? Like, this is maybe more relevant to you. It's like, so we're doing podcasting right now. Mason knows how to edit, and generally Mason will edit each episode. But as well, like, you know, teach yourself about audio. How does, like, you know, the microphones work? How do you like monitor the audio? How do you change the gain? How do you make sure that it sounds right? And then with that, you can then like, okay, I know about audio, I know about podcasting. Let's talk about like doing a radio show, or let's get into music, like
streaming. It's like all the subsidiaries.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the thing. It's like the beautiful thing about kind of trying it on your own first is you have to individually recognize every element.
Yeah.
Audio, video, branding, market, like all of these things. It's like when you're running it on your own, you have to do it.
Yeah.
Whereas if you were joining a team, you just have one job and you focused on that. But it's like, again, like it's becoming less and less common to have that kind of role.
Yeah. And I think like, if we think historically speaking, most people think like, okay, like I'm this and that's it. Right, but they think like there's no overlapping with anything else. So I'm you know, I study fine art. I'm an artist. Like, that's what I do. I paint, right? But it's like
it's only paint and it's only
like,
canvas.
If you do, so our friend Lisa, we recently did some photos for her for a merch, right? She studies fine art. She's an artist, but guess what? Like, you can print that art either on t-shirts or like shit like this. Like, you can do paintings,
money,
or it's like so. There's a lot of overlap in these different skills that you can use to your advantage. Like this is the day and age that we live in. It's like, if you're a photographer, then you probably know how to use Photoshop. So
that's the skill.
That's also graphic design. You can use illustration. You can go into this. You can do magazines. You can do merch. You can do blogging. You could like, it just builds one after the other.
Yeah.
And there's so much crossover with all these skills. And thank God to Adobe. If you know how to use one, then you can probably get on with the next one really easily.
Yeah. Let's see, if you know a shortcut for Photoshop, you know it for Illustrator.
Exactly. Command Z is the same in everything.
Oh my God,
or Control Z is the same on everything.
Because then when you go to something that doesn't have it, you're like, what is this garbage? Like,
yeah. So, yeah, we live in a new age, and I think, you know, that's something that we want to try and do here at Munchie Media. That's what we're trying to do for ourselves, and then also like. The thing is, like, you don't want to just hoard this all for yourself. Like, oh, let's do a company and it's just for us. It's great.
Especially with the internet, nothing's really for you anymore.
Exactly.
It's for everything.
So it's like, it's not just for us. It's for all our friends as well. Our friends of friends, and then, you know, from there, whoever
anyone that enjoys it, man. Like,
for come real. Join us.
Well, that's another thing is, like, if you personally have made it to this part of the podcast and you would like to do anything, it could be a podcast, it could be music, it could be merch, it could be fucking whatever you do, whatever you want to do. If you reached out to one of us, we would help. Like, we would support, we'd do it, and whatever that like may work out for you. But we'd talk about it, and that's the thing is, like, even talking about it is such an important step.
Yeah.
And it's like our jobs are kind of to be able to cover so many bases that anyone that could come to us would have support. Do you know what I mean?
How can we provide the tools that you need to do what you want to do?
Because it's like, if you don't know something, you'll go learn it.
Yeah,
like we've seen it happen. It's like, and that's kind of the constant push. Like,
yeah. So if you want to, at Munchie Media Limited on Instagram, is it the same on Twitter?
I think it's just at Munchie Media on Twitter.
At Munchie Media, check us out, or, you know, contact us directly. You can email us info@munchiemedia.co.uk, or on socials at Nicholas Diabru. I'll stick it on here, and then at Mason.Thayer. Mason, what's yours?
At Mason.Thayer.
Hey, Mason.Thayer. There you go.
But it might come up as Murdoch.
Yeah. With a wolf. Always a wolf and red. You know it's him.
It's my brand.
So, if your stand was in the picture.
It's the end of the podcast, and I'm happy to move this shit now. You can kind of see the sticker. It's mine. It's mine. Hold on.
We'll stick it on there.
Oh, I'm turning the stand, but not the actual.
Oops.
God, this is. Sorry, audio listeners. You've just had a very bad 5 minutes.
Fuck.
Okay, that's the podcast.
Cool. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We greatly appreciate your engagement. We'll catch you next time.
See you later, guys.
See you later. Awesome. Look, it's red.
Look at my design.
It's red and it's a wolf.
I'm an artist.
Nice one.